putting yourself out there, dealing with rejection sensitivity, and how to start a business when your current job is sucking all your energy dry. That and more in today's episode of Ask Me Anything. I recently hit the 10,000 subscriber mark here on YouTube, and as a little thank you to my community, I asked them to give me all of their burning questions on ADHD, and I would create a series of videos on them. So for the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear me answering all kinds of burning questions about ADHD. And today's video deals with a number of questions related to starting a business when you have ADHD. So if that's you now, or you think it might be you in the future, then stick around because there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom in this one. So let's get started. Okay, the next question comes from Danita, and she says, I'm curious if you've managed a startup side hustle while working a full time job you can't stand. I'm always tired after work and I don't want to do anything to put effort towards my goals. Oh boy, yes, I've been there on more than one occasion. And I understand. I understand that when you leave all of your energy on the table at a job that you hate and you come home and you feel depleted, it can feel very discouraging because you don't see a way out of that cycle. And I mean, again, I wish I had a clear cut answer for you, but the reality is that it starts with you choosing what's more important. It's going to be up to you to decide that the current status quo is no longer acceptable and that something needs to change. And usually, when you get to that point that you're willing to make some sort of a change, it doesn't have to be I'm going to quit my job decision. It can be, I don't know. Maybe you quit your job and go all in on your business. I don't generally recommend that. Maybe you quit your job and find something that's a little less emotionally or physically draining while you start up this new startup. Or maybe you make some decisions about the job that you're in and the boundaries that you need to put up in order to preserve your energy. So, if you're in a job that you hate and it's for a specific reason, then looking at that reason and creating boundaries around what the problem is going to be your first step. So maybe it's not necessarily even the job, it's your manager is unreasonable and calls you day and night and expects you to do things that take up your personal time. Well, at some point, you are going to have to make the decision to put up a boundary with that boss because if what you want for your future is more important than what you have in your present moment, then those are the hard decisions that you're going to make. And sure, it can come with ramifications, but it's up to you to create the boundaries to protect your energy and protect your personal power and peace so that you can move forward. Because here's something else that I think is really important to talk about when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's not like once you start your own business, all of a sudden your energy is entirely within your own control. It's not that simple. Very often, once you're in your own business, you have to hustle to make business. You have to create your own income and revenue. And you still sometimes have clients, which are just a bunch of now many bosses as opposed to one boss. And your energy is spent in a lot more directions because when you're starting up, generally you are wearing a multiple hats, which takes even more energy. And I don't say that to discourage you from starting your own business because that can be a very rewarding thing, but it is still going to be a drain on your energy. So the work for you is to figure out how to manage your energy and consider this your MBA in energy management where you currently are, where you don't call all the shots. So this is where you practice boundaries. This is where you practice time management. This is where you practice understanding and learning what tasks light you up and what tasks drain you, because all of that is going to inform how you're going to be in your business. So what can you remove from your situation now that's really draining or create boundaries around so that you can contain your energy and use it for more efficient things that you can do in your spare time to move that business forward? Now, the other piece I would say about this is that very often I think that we can pull the energy card out and assume that that's the problem, whereas it might be something else. It might be that you don't specifically know what needs to happen next in order for you to move forward in your business. There's ambiguity, or there's fear, or there's perfectionism, and you are somehow getting in your own way. So, my questions to you would be, do you know what it is you want for a business? Like, is it very, very crystal clear in your mind? And then, if you have the vision, do you know what needs to be done next? Like, do you know all of the specific steps that need to happen in order for you to make this a reality? And once you have spent time really detailing that out, I would also recommend detailing out the things that you can do when you have low capacity energy just to keep the ball rolling versus the things that you can do when you have high capacity. That comes down to energy management again, right? So when I know I have a coaching day ahead or I'm doing a lot of deep work, I make sure that I have fish and vegetables the night before. I drink lots of water. I take a little melatonin about an hour before bed, so that will make me more tired, which will make me go to bed. And then I go to bed and I don't expose myself to a lot of light. I mean, we all know these tricks, right? But we don't often do them. We'll stay on our phone just scrolling till 2 a.m. And then we wake up and we're tired the next day and we're low capacity. So, again, coming back to this idea of what's in your control, managing your energy is in your control. So, what can you do to create the capacity you need on the weekends or at night in order to spend time working on your business? Because again, you can find yourself in this cycle forever. And then one day you'll wake up and it'll all be over and you will have never moved forward. And I don't mean that to sound so doomy, but that is the reality of life. It's up to us to make a change. Sometimes the universe shakes us up, or sometimes we make those decisions ourselves. Either way, I hope what I shared was helpful. Again, this all comes down to energy management, and only you have the personal autonomy to choose how you spend your energy and where you place boundaries to protect that energy. So, good luck. And I hope that you are able to make the changes you need to go after the life of your dreams. The next question comes from Madison, and she asked, any advice about how you overcame fear of starting your own business, like building up a clientele? Also, any thoughts on how to deal with rejection sensitivity and managing strong emotions as someone with ADHD? Thank you so much. Your channel is fantastic. Well, thank you, Madison. So let's talk about the fear of launching the business and getting the clientele. I've dealt with that. And I actually did a video, which I will link to here, around giving yourself the grace and space to not be good at first. I think that one of the key struggles that most ADHDers have is perfectionism. And it's not because our brains are wired for perfectionism or black and white thinking or any of those other things that we envelop in this ADHD experience. It's because very often our perspectives are a little skewed, right? So when we go into something, we often feel like it has to be perfect or I'm not going to do it. And that perspective is coming from an experience either in the past or something that somebody's told us, but we have this belief that it's not going to be good enough because that's one of the core beliefs we have that we've adopted in our lifetime. And the problem with that is if you hold this belief that you can't do anything unless it's perfect because you'll get mocked or judged or anything like that by other people, then you will never get it done. It will just never happen because you are never going to be good at something you've never done before, right? So, unless you're willing to give yourself the grace and space to get good at something, it's just not going to happen, bottom line. So, with that in mind, where you need to square up for yourself is that your desire to start a business is bigger than your perceived fear. Because I know that your fear is real. I feel fear too. But my desire to do the things that I'm doing are bigger than my fears. My desire to be my own boss and to create things here on YouTube, those sort of things are very strong desires for me, and they supersede my fear. So if your desires to start a business are not superseding your fear, then quite honestly, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but this is the truth, you may not want it badly enough. And that's okay. You've learned something about yourself. I think very often, coming back to this idea of our perception being skewed, we have this belief that having a business is going to solve all of our problems. So we put it out there and we put on this big pedestal and make it this massive thing that's so far out of reach that we'll never get to. So we don't even try, like we just use fear as this perceived barrier to getting to this ultimate place. And that keeps us safe where we are, right? Coming back to the other question about how do we manage to start a business when we're in a job that's sucking us dry, there's a safety to the cycle that you're currently in. And unless you are willing to change something about the current cycle that you're in, it will never change. So let me give you an example from my own life. As I've mentioned before, I've had a number of different businesses in the past. And with some of them, I have been so stifled with fear to do some of the things that were primary to that business, that the business failed. And I can think of a number of different situations when that happened. And when I look back at that situation now, I realize, well, A, that was not the business for me. And B, the things that I didn't want to move forward on were things that I just legit didn't want to do. So somewhere in the back of my mind, my smarter, higher self was saying, no, Karen, we're not going to do this because this is not something we want to do. And even if we could push ourselves to do it once or twice, we know we don't want to sign up for the next 5 to 10 years of doing said thing. So why even start, right? So ask yourself these questions. Get really honest with yourself if you are holding yourself back because of fear, or is it fear coded in? You really just don't want to do the things you need to do in order to achieve that goal. In which case, all you have to do is reassess the goal and come up with a new direction, because there is a business out there for you, or there is a job out there for you. There's something out there for you. You just haven't found it yet. So you can keep looking, but you got to be honest with yourself if you're getting in your own way again and again because you're making this ideal more than it really is. Because I'll tell you something, even now as an entrepreneur, my days aren't perfect. They're longer. I make less money, but I'm just having a little bit more fun. So it's not all puppies and rainbows on this side. And the idealized version of your business probably isn't as amazing as you think it is. So when you are able to see it more in reality, then it can probably burst a few bubbles and give you a greater sense of whether or not it is something you want to go after. In terms of rejection sensitivity, this one's a hard one, right? Because I don't want to disregard the power that that can have on us. I am also somebody who's very, very highly sensitive. But when it comes to business and RSD, the reality is that if you are moving forward with something that you genuinely believe is solving a problem, then some people will reject you, and that will be okay, because you know in your heart what you're doing is the right thing. You're doing the right work for you, and you're doing something that betters the world. If you're coming up against RSD and it's completely stifling you, then I would come back to the why of why you're trying to do this business. Is it because you're trying to solve a problem and you're genuinely trying to make the world a better place in some ways? Is there a motivation within you that's greater than you that you can see past perceived or real rejection? And also understanding that RSD, by its very nature, even if you are getting rejected by people, people will say no to you. It's the perception of that rejection for us that is so overwhelming. So there needs to be a mechanism whereby you are able to come into a moment where you say, yeah, I just got rejected, but I also know that I'm probably overblowing this. So maybe I need to take a moment, have a hot meal, go to bed, and see how I feel about it in the morning. So what I'm saying there is you've got to look at things from a high level, understanding your motivations, understanding your why, understanding that not everybody is going to want what you have to offer and those very high level things, but then taking it down to the level of what can you tactically do to prepare yourself for that day in and day out, meaning making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure that, you have the right supports in place, whether that's a therapist or a coach or just a best friend who gets you, that you can bounce your feelings off of, and making sure that you're staying present to those emotions so that you can talk yourself down off the ledge that you find yourself on every day so that you can manage it enough that you can get up the next day and do the same thing over and over again. And if that sounds exhausting, I understand, but that's life, right? Like, we don't get through this life unscathed. We don't get through this life not being rejected. So while I hold RSD and high compassion because I deal with it too, I also understand that if I want to move forward in life, I need to come up with my own ways of managing it. And I don't know that my ways are perfect, but like I said, whenever I feel that way, I let myself just have a hot meal and go to bed and promise I will dwell on it in the morning. And usually that helps me a lot because in the morning, things feel a lot less big, if you will. And very often our emotions feel big because we're tired or we're hungry or there's some biological need that is not being met in the moment. So always staying present to parenting yourself and doing what you need to keep yourself online and even keel so that you can deal with those moments of perceived rejection and understand them in the appropriate context so you can keep doing what it is you're doing. Hope that's helpful. So that's what I've got for you this week. Stay tuned next week because I have a lot more answers to your questions on how to live your best ADHD life, regardless of what struggles you come up against. So thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.